Every year, we say goodbye to people we care about. All sorts of people, family and friends, neighbors and coworkers, and those famous faces we only know from the other side of a screen. At Legacy.com, we pay tribute to all of them. I'm Steven Siegel, the senior editor at Legacy.
And I'm Linnea Crowther, Legacy's senior obituary writer. Every day, we're reading and writing the life stories of those who've died. In 2019, Legacy published hundreds of breaking news obituaries. Join us now as we look back at the biggest headline stories of the people who shaped our world, who we said goodbye to over the past year.
Kristoff St. John was one of the most beloved stars of the soap opera world. He played Neil Winters on The Young and the Restless for 28 years, from 1991 until his unexpected death from heart disease in February, at the age of 52. Over the course of his performance, he became one of the longest-running African-American characters in television history, and he won Emmy Awards and NAACP Image Awards for his work. Even soap opera fans who didn't watch The Young and the Restless remember Kristoff St. John as a good TV friend.
Teen dramas were the bookends to Luke Perry's acting career. Beverly Hills 90210 made him a heartthrob as he played bad boy Dylan McKay. 90s teens debated who was cuter, Dylan or Brandon, and they had strong opinions on whether Dylan should end up with Brenda or Kelly. A new generation of teens saw Perry as dad instead of hunk when he played Archie's father Fred on the CW's Riverdale starting in 2017. Young or old, all his fans were shocked when Luke Perry died of a stroke at 52.
They called Doris Day America's sweetheart. She died in May at the age of 97, after devoting decades to animal welfare. But back in the 50s and 60s, she was the most famous pop star in the country. In the movies, she played Calamity Jane, she starred for Hitchcock, and she was the queen of romantic comedies. Her singing career started on big band radio, and eventually she won the Best Song Oscar for Que Sera Sera. And there was her sitcom, The Doris Day Show. They kept reinventing it every season, but it was still a hit, and its Monday night time slot led straight into CBS's next big hit, The Carol Burnett Show.
Tim Conway was the first to admit that his goal on The Carol Burnett Show was to crack up his co-stars as much as possible. He did it with physical comedy, like when he played a dentist accidentally stabbing himself in the leg with Novocaine. He did it with silly accents. All he had to say was Mrs. Ahoygans to make his co-stars crack. The audience did too. Before he died in May, Tim Conway also made us laugh in wacky Hollywood films, in his goofy Dorf videos, and as Barnacle Boy on SpongeBob SquarePants. Cameron Boyce was heartbreakingly young when he died of epilepsy in July, but he packed more into his 20 years than some people do in a lifetime. One of Disney's young stars, he led a new generation of fairy tale characters, starring in the Descendants series as Carlos DeVille, not to mention shows like Jessi and The Gamer's Guide to Pretty Much Everything, and movies like Grown Ups. Off-screen, Cameron Boyce was a dedicated activist fighting to end sexual assault, gun violence, and homelessness, as well as raising money for clean water in developing countries.
Toni Morrison didn't just write literature. She changed literature. In her novels like Beloved and Song of Solomon, she brought beautiful language and brutal honesty to the epic stories she wanted to tell about the Black American experience. She wrote fiction, but she wrote it like a poet, and she wrote it like a prophet. The Nobel Prize, the Pulitzer, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, her honors go on and on. But Toni Morrison's legacy is in the minds of the millions of readers who saw the whole world more clearly after they read her books.
Ric Ocasek, who died in September, was the frontman for the Cars. They helped bring new wave music into the mainstream in the late 70s by writing songs that were super melodic, but also edgy and a little weird, like Good Times Roll and Just What I Needed. The Cars were some of the biggest stars of MTV at a time when MTV was at its absolute peak. Their 1984 video for You Might Think won MTV's first ever Video of the Year award. Watch it sometime if you want to remember Ric Ocasek in all his nerdy glory.
If you've ever listened to the news on National Public Radio, you've heard Cokie Roberts' voice. When she joined NPR in the 70s, her reporting on national politics became the station's gold standard. She was born in Louisiana. First her father and then her mother were members of Congress, so you could always tell she wasn't just reading the news. Cokie Roberts really got what the political world was about, and she had a brilliant gift for explaining it to the rest of us. She died at the age of 75 from complications from breast cancer.
When Diahann Carroll took the role that would make her famous, TV had not yet caught up to the real world when it came to reflecting African American lives. She played the title character on Julia, and that character was the first Black woman on TV who was anything other than a maid or a mammy. It was 1968, Julia was a nurse, and it was about time we got a chance to see a professional Black woman on TV. Later in her career, Carol got to play a deliciously over-the-top diva on the nighttime soap Dynasty. Diahann Carroll died of breast cancer in October.
Most people who knew his work didn't know his real name. But when Caroll Spinney died in December at the age of 85, there was an incredible outpouring of love for the man who played Big Bird. For almost 50 years since the public television show Sesame Street debuted in 1969, Spinney brought a childlike sense of wonder to the 8-foot-tall canary who helped kids make sense of the world. As if that wasn't enough, he also played Oscar the Grouch. Between these two iconic Muppets, Caroll Spinney helped raise 3 generations of American children with kindness, understanding, and love. So many remarkable life stories came to an end in 2019. Those first 10 are just the tip of the iceberg. Come along with us now as we celebrate the lives of the artists, athletes, world leaders, and more, whose deaths this year brought countless fans to leave memories and condolences at legacy.com.